been going so far, because it's always important to take feedbacks. Do you think you are benefiting from the session personally? So I would like a few people to speak up. Is Solidity that difficult that you guys are just silent? Even in the last class, people were silent. Even today, people are silent. During JavaScript, everyone had the enthusiasm to speak and give recaps of the previous class. In fact, people were giving it in such a structured manner that I could think, oh, okay. It felt as if they were reading the course structure itself. What has happened when we started with Solidity? What's wrong? Is it something from my end, or do you think it is overwhelming for you? You're not giving enough time. What is it? Some people speak up.
Hi.
Otherwise, there's no. Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
Hi.
Actually, according to me, it's going at a good pace. Like there's always been this. I wasn't able to read documentation. It's like I'm not a big fan of documentation, but going through documentation with you, it's great. It's been helpful. Like when you were teaching, I was scrolling through other things as well. What is it? What is in there and all, and it was readable. And I'm kind of loving it.
Okay.
It's
Thank
good.
you. Thank you. Yeah. Other people. See, it's really important for us to take everyone together, and I have been trying really, really hard so far. Okay. Yeah, Raksha wants to speak up. Yes, Raksha.
Hello, good evening. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, you are.
Okay, so yesterday I had my first session with GIB and I really enjoyed it. To be honest, it was my first session, so I was kind of scared that if I'll be able to catch up or not, and if I'll be able to understand anything or not. But the way you read the documentation, it made it like very easier for me. And I personally prefer reading books and reading documentation instead of jumping into the videos and other stuff for learning concepts or something. So that just made me so happy, and it motivated me to learn more. And I literally read some other topics also during the documentation, and it was a wonderful experience. And I'm looking forward to learn more in this session.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Means a lot. So yeah, like I was saying that we've always tried to take the pace in such a manner that beginners and people who already know stuffs are going hand in hand. Okay, I know stuffs, I can finish it in 3 class or 4 class, but that doesn't make any sense, right? We got to have that kind of patience. Even we expect that kind of patience from you as well, even if you know things. So if there's no interaction, I will not be able to know how things are going for you, and there's no point if I just go on blabbering and just present my screen and talk for 2 hours straight. The only reason that I'm coming and taking class, even though I'm sick and I've been traveling, is because I really enjoy doing it. The kind of feedbacks you guys give, and the idea that okay, someone is getting benefited from the energy that I'm putting in, it means a lot. And so it is from your end that I'm getting that energy, right? Even the Web3 Learn team has been really, really supportive, and they've always given me feedbacks that really motivates me to do better. But it is all dependent on you. They might just appreciate the effort, seeing that okay, yeah, I'm putting in a lot of effort. But if you guys are not benefited, all of that appreciation doesn't make sense. So even when the class starts, I'm giving 5 minutes of discussion, wanting to know feedbacks, not because I want you guys to tell all the good things about me, but because I want to know things that where you think I can improve. How far have you been, able to catch up? Are you benefiting from it or not? Because a lot of us are putting our energies, these if you're for your 2 hours of class, even though I know things, I need to put at least 2.5 or 3 hours of effort, because I need to see how the structure goes and all of it. And along with all the traveling and the extra work in my job, it's not easy. It is not easy at all. So I truly expect that you guys will reciprocate that energy. You've been doing it amazingly so far. I think it's the ninth class, and we have around nine more classes to go. So we have like a lot of work. We have to learn a lot of things. We have to make projects. In the later classes, the whole class has to be run by you, not me. That will only happen by the time I am teaching, and I think there are concepts that I have to tell you. After that, you will be taking the classes further. So you got to, have that kind of put yourself in my position and think that if you would have been teaching apart, like except me, like instead of me behind the screen, and nobody is talking, nobody is saying anything, only few people are writing, okay, it was a good class, it was a good class. How would you feel? You would always want that if you are putting that out, that energy, speaking straight for 2 hours, people should at least speak in the end and say that, yeah, this was good. This is what we expect. This is what we would want you to cover in the next class, if so. Or in fact, if I would have been at your position, like people said that you guys read some topics or stuff, I would just volunteer myself to be like, okay, no, I read this thing. Can I take this topic for 5 minutes in the class? You can reteach it, re-explain it, but I would definitely want to give it a shot. I don't want to put everything on you that I have to tell you that, okay, someone explain the code. Okay, someone please do this. No. If you have explored something, just volunteer yourself. That, hey, please, can you allow me to take a topic for 5 minutes or 10 minutes? I would like to answer the questions. I would like to see how it goes. That's easy work for me, right? I can rest. Because anyway, you can hear my voice. It's just so bad. Oh my God. So have that kind of enthusiasm, have that kind of volunteer feeling. Somebody was raising hand. I saw. I think Pujita was raising hand. Is it? Do you have something to say? Okay. Shweta is raising hand. Swati also raised hand. Yeah, Shweta, speak if you have something to say. Okay. Swati, you want to speak?
Yeah, Sneha. Like to be frank, yesterday was the speed was going fine, but we are hearing all the times for all the terms like for the first time. So it was really a little overwhelming for me yesterday. But the way you put things together is just so great that after the session, immediately when I went through the documentation, like everything that you talked really made sense. And yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Your feedbacks are always so great. The energy that you put in while giving a feedback just hypes me up with all that energy that you. Okay, Garima has a question. I have a doubt in Web3, like there are many more protocols and application present, like Polygon, Filecoin, Aave, etc. So, like, are there some must-to-know things so that participation in hackathon will pose no problem, like from where and how we can. Okay, so the thing is, there's this trick to always participate in a hackathon. The trick has worked for me. It has worked for a lot of people who win most of the hackathons. And as you know, in Web3 hackathons, you don't like have one certain prize. Like there is a first prize, second prize, and third prize. But since it's a nascent technology, there's so many protocols who give bounties, who gives you extra prizes if you're trying to just build something on top of it, right? So you ideally there is no such way in which you can know it all and you know how you can participate. But the moment you register for a hackathon and the hack starts, okay, or before the hack starts, if you have some time, if it's an online hackathon or whatever, just go through the prizes section, okay. go through the prices section, see what all protocols are putting in their bounties. Okay, so there are two, three types. So where they one is where they say, okay, the best project will get $1,000, the second best will get $500, the third best will get $300 or so. The other can be track prices. So if you're building something in DeFi, if you're building something in gaming, so in DeFi there will be 3 tier, in gaming there will be 3 tiers. So depending on the protocol. And then one is the pool price. So pool price is basically that all the people who have built something using that protocol in the hackathon will get. So suppose there are 10 teams, and out of those 10 teams, 5 teams have made something on IPFS, and IPFS has put a pool price of $1,000. So all those 5 teams will get $200. Okay, 5 teams overall, not the number of people. 5 teams overall will get $200, and then you have to do the division amongst yourselves. Okay, so how it goes is the first and foremost thing to do when a hack starts is go to the prices section, see which protocols have put in their prices. Okay, then if you have an idea in mind, fair enough, start listing that. Okay, just like I've told you before, that uh, whenever you're coding, you should always list things that, okay, this is what I want to add. I think I told you this when we were doing the digital clock project, that whatever features you need, or even in the calculator project, whatever features you need to write it, and then you need to figure out that, okay, how are we going to implement this. So similarly, if you have an idea, list out all the features that you think you'll be able to do in um, a 2 hour session, sorry, a 2 day hack, or if it's a month hack, or whatever it is, right? So list out all the features. Now, search which protocols can help you achieve that feature, okay, or help you implement that feature. Then, once you have that list, see which protocols out of these that you have made a list is supporting or is sponsoring the hackathon. Okay, so that is how you filter out. If you do not have an idea already, read about those protocols that are sponsoring the event or giving you prizes, and then think of an idea in which the maximum of these protocols can be integrated, and then start building. Okay, so the whole game stands around that you should know how to do the front end. If your team is there, you should know how to do front end, back end, and how to integrate these protocols. And let me be very, very frank, there are protocols whose documentation is so beautiful that just using their SDK or their API or whatever, you'll be able to do the job and you get $200 and $300 in a hackathon. I have won a lot of hackathons. I've won a lot of money in the last year. These days, I'm not doing hacks much because I don't like really have a proper team to go forward with, and the bandwidth in terms of the time and everything is very low for me. But that is how we all have moved forward with, and I've made that kind of money last year when I didn't know much. So right now, if we start building, and if I had a proper team of front end and back end, and if we have like a nice idea, I think we can make a lot of money. I've seen my friends making $15,000, $20,000 in one hackathon, where there are a 3 or 4 people team. So that's almost 4 or 5 lakh rupee per person. That's a lot of money. I've myself made 80,000 a lakh from one hackathon. So that is how you go forward. So you always filter out which all things you want to work with, and then start reading about it. All of the Web3 protocols, all of the Web3 projects that you go forward with, there are not much resources, so you always have to go with documentation. That is one reason I stress on reading documentations a lot, and that is why I have been using this approach to teach you guys Solidity. There will be some people who will be like, okay, what is the point of learning from her if she's reading the doc? No, bro. Just sit after or sit before the class and try reading the document and tell me how much time were you able to concentrate. So there are certain things that will be made easier if you have a mentor. I don't say that I'm very, very qualified to be a mentor. It's Kiran's and Priyanka's just goodwill that they have put me on a mentor position here. I am also learning. I have to learn a lot. But I think that approach works best for most of the people. So I think that is how you go forward when it comes to hackathon. You don't have any set resources. Just go through documentations, filter out the protocols, like I said, and you'll definitely win a lot of money in the hackathon. And if you don't win, you know how to move forward, what works best for you for the next hackathon. So I think that's how you go forward with it. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, actually, the thing is, I have tried for previous hackathons. Like there was one of Spheron blockchain. So I tried in it, and I tried reading their documentation as well. There were some workshops that I even attended, but still I wasn't able to make a project out of it.
Hmm.
So yeah, actually, I
Happens.
think, yeah. So maybe is there any type of thing that I can read from which I can overcome this fear of reading documentation and making thing out of it? Like any documentation that you prefer is good, and I can start reading that.
Okay, so in Web3, I'll tell you frankly, the technologies haven't, or these protocols have not been that old that they'll have a really nice documentation. Okay,
Yeah.
Solidity is the most stable one. People say React's documentation is really nice. So be it Web 2, be it Web 3, if you have to have that habit and if you want to overcome the fear, I think any documentation would go, right? I personally don't know React. Okay, I've never liked front end, so I don't know. In fact, I'm planning to start learning React, and I think documentation will be my way forward.
Yeah, I'm
So
a
I think,
React dev only. So
yeah,
I've read its documentation.
yeah. So in Web 3, I don't have any suggestions as such. Solidity is just okay, okay. I mean, amongst all, it's okay for you to understand. It's still overwhelming. A lot of terms are really overwhelming. But I'll look into that. I'll ask my people if they have any suggestions, and I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, there is something, yeah, regarding the project thing that you said, I'll tell you. I've participated in 20 plus hackathons, and we were only able to successfully submit projects in, I think, 7 of them. And it is so depressing. And like, what did we do? And some of these hackathons were 1 month long, still you won't be able to do it. So that is how you go forward with it. You don't have to always be hard on yourself and feel bad. In fact, the Saron Dapathon hackathon you're talking about, right?
Yeah, it just happened.
When I participated in a hackathon called Unfold last year, it was also by Devfolio, amazing hackathon. We couldn't really complete the project, but what we thought was whatever working we have, if we put it on Spheron was giving $300 or something, right? We couldn't deploy it on Spheron as well, whatever
That's
working thing we had. So
okay.
it's so frustrating that, oh my God, people are just able to do it just like that. There were people who just made a basic website, and they had this idea, good idea, and all of that. And they just deployed it on Sferon and they won $300. And I'm like, shit, I'm not even able to do this. So it happens. It's always a learning experience. You don't have to bother. Would you share some tips on how to form a good team? Oh my God, this is something that I need tips on. I've always had horrible teams. I have always had extreme teams. So either I'll have team that is super talented, in which we had people who will do the project in themselves, and on the day of submission they'll be like, yeah guys, you submitted the project. Okay. Or I'll have teams who don't know anything at all. Like they are like, yeah, we know front end, we know back end, but they aren't able to convert that into execution. Or and it's not that they're bad, it's because they don't have the timeline, but they want to take part. So not their fault either. But I'm telling my experience. So either super talented people, either people who are not able to convert their skills into a proper working project. In fact, it happens with me also. I've tried for so many hackathons. I do hackathons even when I was having end semesters, and in the end, it will be like, oh my God, I just can't do this. So I don't think I don't think I can give you a tip on how to form a good team. But whenever you're forming a team, you should have multiple people for a skill. Okay, so suppose if you have to make a team of 4 people in a hackathon, make sure that 2 of them at least knows front end. It's not just front end. Make sure that you're always having people who are possessing multiple skills. So if I can do smart con, smart contracts. I should also be able to help you in the non-tech side. Maybe I am very good with presentations. I'm very good with making demos. If someone is good with front end, they should be good with designing stuff, so that they can help you with the UI UX, or they can also contribute some part to the back end. So always have a mix of skills, so that one person should not have all the pressure that, oh shit, and you have to wait that until and unless that person gives me the front end, only then I'll be able to proceed forward. Then you'll have a really messy team, because you'll have to rely on one person to do the job and then move forward with you. So yeah, I think that is okay. You had a chance to participate in hackathon, Rajasthan government. The 4 people in team, only 2 were working and other 2. Yeah, that happens. And it's not their fault. It gets overwhelming for them. They don't have the bandwidth. Some just don't want to put that work, and it's fine, right? I mean, not everyone wants to hustle. It's good to go for an easy path sometimes, and not to stress yourself too much. So how do you deal with this thing? Either I put all my energy in submitting the project, because I don't like to not complete something that I have signed up for. But if I think that it's too overwhelming for me also, and I won't be able to do it alone, I'm like, okay, it's time to rest. I have an extra weekend to chill. I have an extra day to chill. So yeah, that is how I go forward with it. Maybe we can have our teams from people present here. Here, many would be interested, I guess. Yeah, people will be interested, obviously, but you can't like give certainty that when the hackathon is happening, they have the bandwidth to do it. Like my luck was so bad that at the time of all the major hackathons, Eat India, Green Pill Hackathon, I had my exams every time. Even Unfold, I had exams. But I was like, let it be. I'll write exams. I'll travel to Bangalore, come back Monday morning, write my exam on Monday morning. So I reach at 5, I write my exam at 9, chill. So not everybody wants to do that. So yeah, a lot of that is a factor as well. Anyway, enough of talking. We'll talk at the end of the session as well. Okay, somebody appreciated me and I missed. Sessions are amazing. I'm watching sessions are boring, but your words and your explanation, maybe the examples you're taking to explain interesting us to learn more and more stuff. Yeah, right. Priyanka and Kiran, they're just doing such a good job. And it's fine if you're in library and you are not able to talk. But yeah, the team is doing an amazing job. And okay, fine. We'll start with the class. So somebody who wants to give a brief about last class, like a very quick recap.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes,
Ma'am, one second, I wanna just excuse you because I'm really new. Like when I'm gonna see my friends over there, I just feel like I'm a dump. So don't take my chance or my opportunity to speak up. Okay, now let me try. And yesterday we had gone through Solidity, and like we went for the introduction to the smart contract, where you had explained the Solidity with an example. The example is like based on a storage of a data. Actually, and I got to know about the data type. It's called as a uint, and some stuffs over there. Like later we went for the second example, where we went like briefly about the Solidity, almost every points about Solidity. Like we solved the problem, an example about the sub currency, and we learned about contract, and we learned about unit storage, store data and address, and class contract and address mapping, uint and required, and error and event, and about the public, why it is needed, how who and all can access using a public or the like private and protect, and not about protected but the public and private, if I'm not wrong. And you told about like error, like the error may occur when the condition may not fulfill. And yeah, that's it, ma'am. Like address and those things. And we worked in Remix, and we solved a problem. I mean, we just copied this code and we worked with that. Actually, I wanted a small demo, like you told, to give input for those things. But actually, it's better if you give a small demo on that, because I want to see how to give input and all. Actually, I'm really interested to learn, but I feel like I'm dumb when I'm gonna see these stuffs in, like, in this group. Like, that's
Okay.
what.
So first thing first, the way you explained is not something that a dumb person can do. Okay. Secondly, we all have our own pace, right? The other girls who are answering, they're just doing their bit, their extra bit. Okay. I think I don't know. I got confused, but I think it was Swati or Shweta who gave me this feedback that. Um, he or she was an introvert, and then she started answering, and now she feels really confident. I don't know who it was, just any of you whosoever said about being introvert, and she's really really happy. Yeah, Swati was it, right? So she just did one thing. All of you guys are attending the session, right? She just tried to overcome that hesitation of speaking during a session, and that is why through 2 3 sessions she gained that confidence. It was not through just one class. She's been doing it continuously. I think she's one of the most active kids in the class here, right? So that is how you do it. So no matter how dumb you feel, and you feel I don't know this thing, you have to speak up, because you don't know. So many people are just quiet because they're scared of asking questions. They're relying on other people, that there might be that someone in the crowd who would ask this question, and ma'am will answer, and then I'll get the answer. That is not how it works. And in fact, I feel it's like a failure from my end, because the kind of examples that I give you, or the way I tell you that, oh shit, I have been doing this mistake, that is only to show you that I also was at one point where I didn't know anything. And right now, teaching a cohort of 100 girls, it's a huge thing. I've come so far because of the effort I've put. Okay. So you just have to do that one bit. You are not dumb at all. It's just that other people have the bandwidth, and they're trying a little harder than you are. Okay. Or they're taking, or they might be very good at grasping things. We all have such friends in class, right? That they will study a night before examination and they'll get more marks than us. And we will study the whole semester and we'll not have good marks. Okay. Although I come in the first category, but still, I know how to prioritize my work, but it wasn't like that always. I have always struggled with that thing, and there were people who used to make so much fun of me, that Shah, you were studying for whole year and you got 90% in your 12th standard. We studied for just a night before and we have got 85%. Doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's about you. How fast your pace putting it up, or how slow you're putting, doesn't matter. You just have to pick it. It's about gaining that knowledge. Doesn't matter how much time you're taking. The group will even be there after the 6 week of cohort is done. I will always be there. Kiran will always be there. Priyanka will always be there. You can always ask doubts. You can always ask doubts to your peers. So there's nothing as such. And now that you've told me this, you are the one person who's gonna answer in every class now. And secondly, I am not gonna give you the demo because I want you to experiment yourself. Figure out how to do it. I've given you that explanation. I've showed you that this is how remix looks like. This is the button that you have to put. I've showed you how I put that number for the storage example, and do the transaction. Now you figure out. It's just one computer screen that you have to experiment with. What will go wrong? You're not dealing with any crucial data that if you do something here, Elon Musk's Tesla share will fall down. No, nothing of that sort is going to happen. It's just in your computer. Experiment with it. I hate spoon feeding. I don't like to be people like, okay, guys, learn A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah, repeat. No, I am not that person. I don't like that. So I've told you everything. Now it's your your energy, your effort, that how you join that puzzle and figure out things for you. So you do it and you tell us the output. There were so many people who were giving the screenshots, right? You don't know that they might have done wrong in the first attempt. They're giving the screenshot. It's exactly like you take 100 pictures for Instagram and you post that one picture that you feel is perfect, right? We don't see that effort of 99 pictures, right? So you have to do that effort. You make mistakes, you get wrong outputs. Once, just once, when you get that correct output, that you have to send it in the group for me to verify. That's it. So I'm not gonna show you the demo. Figure it out on your own. Is that fine, Bhumika?
Okay, ma'am, I'll try my level best. Like, even though I have internals, I didn't even skip a single class.
Good.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
See,
till, yeah,
we
ma'am. Yeah,
we
you
never
continue.
we never tend to appreciate ourselves for the effort we are putting. We
Yeah.
always feel that, oh my God, others are answering. Oh my God, others are doing this. No, others are not having their internals. Others are not having exams. Others are not having college such rigorously that you are having or anyone else is having. So you have less time to put for the cohort. But the fact that you're coming up for every session means a lot. You have the recording, you can always go back and read things and do things. It's fine. It's totally fine. See, even Kirti is saying that she's one among of the introvert people, but she's trying to speak up in the sessions because of my motivation. Thank you so much. I love to motivate people. I think that will be one of my career options, be a motivational speaker. But yes, too much talking for today's session. This is how we have to evenly distribute. Okay, if we do 10 minutes of talking in every session, it is fine. But if we start talking for 35 minutes, Kiran is like, okay, this was supposed to be a solidity cohort, not a motivational session, huh? So no cohorts for you next time. I don't want that, huh? So okay, yeah, okay. So Bhumika has already explained things. So today we are gonna, so yesterday we started actually with the hard thing, okay? Because I wanted to give you the knack of how things might look in the near future and see if you guys are able to understand it or not, right? Today, and you might have seen that I haven't explained the types of data that are available, what are the variable types, what are the operators, and all of that, like I did for JavaScript, right? Because for JavaScript, it's like any other language, but for Solidity, it's a little different. Uh, so we'll be doing that. Okay, so we'll be looking into all these elements. For yesterday's session, we looked through the program, and while we were going through the code, I explained it to you, right? But today we are going to look it into like proper detail, and then we'll look into like some extra advanced concepts as well. So I'll share my screen. Where is the Solidity? Just a minute. Share screen. Okay. Yeah, fine. So everyone can see my screen, right? Everyone, is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yesterday we were somewhere here. We were at introduction to smart contracts. We talked about subcurrency, and we explained that code to you, right? Now this segment, transactions, blocks, Ethereum virtual machine, accounts, transactions again, gas, storage memory and stack, instruction set, message calls, basically everything that is there in the first page, that is still pre-compiled contracts. You have to read this, and some two of you will explain that to me in the next class. Okay, I'm not gonna take all of this because if we get into this today, the whole time will go, right? But we need to have like more idea of Solidity, okay, so that we can move to projects faster. So just take a note, all of you, that we have already discussed this segment, this whole thing, subcurrency example, from this segment, blockchain basics, till the last topic of the page, that is pre-compiled contracts. You guys have to take it. So we'll have like in the next class, we'll have 20 minutes allocated to this particular segments. Okay, and it can be anybody. And I'm not gonna ask the people who always answer. It's gonna be anyone in random. So please make a note and don't tell me that you didn't inform prior. Okay. So today we'll start looking into how the Solidity language looks in general. Okay, how is the language structured? What are the data types? How do we work with syntax and everything? Okay, cool. So everyone can see the layout of Solidity source file, right? So see again, the first line itself is SPDX license identifier, right? So we have already talked about this. This was the same paragraph that was written yesterday, that when we are talking about trust in smart contract, it can be established if the source code is available, right? Because people know that, okay, this is the code, this is what it is doing. So there's more transparency. Since making source code available always touches on legal problems with regards to copyright, blah, 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 Solidity has this inbuilt function, inbuilt thing of machine readable SPDX license identifier. So they clearly specify that every source file should start with a comment indicating its license. Okay, that is SPDX license identifier MIT. For as of now, all the projects that we have seen, it goes for GPL 3.0. Honestly, I also don't know what it means, and I don't care also. The compiler does not validate that the license is part of the list allowed by, but it does include the supplied strings in the bytecode metadata. If you do not want to specify a license, or if the source code is not open source, please use the special value unlicensed. Note that unlicensed, no usage allowed, not present in SPDX license list, is different from unlicensed. That is grants all rights to everyone. Solidity follows the NPM recommendation. Okay, all of that is not important, but you should know that suppose tomorrow if you're taking a session in your respective colleges or any cohort like this is something to be highlighted, that the license has to be there because the code has to be open sourced and it should be transparent, and it leads to a lot of copyright license issues. So that is why there's an inbuilt thing. And if the source code is not open source, you can put it as unlicensed. Okay, and unlicensed is different. Okay, so in unlicensed, the rights is granted to everyone. When you're doing a personal project that you don't want to get into production, you can put it as unlicensed. Okay, supplying this comment, of course, does not free you from other obligations related to licensing, like having to mention a specific license header in each source file, blah, blah, blah. That is not important. Okay, the comment is recognized by the compiler anywhere in the file at the file level, but it is recommended to put it at the top of the file. So the compiler can read that comment anywhere. If you put it anywhere in the whole code, it is readable by the compiler, but it is always a good way to mention it at the top. Okay. Now, pragmas, again, we have already talked about that the pragma keyword is used to enable certain compiler features or checks. A pragma directive is always local to a source file. So you have to add the pragma to all your files if you want to enable it in your whole project. If you import another file, the pragma from that file does not automatically apply to importing the file. Okay. Again, version thing, we have already discussed a lot. Okay. Then again, okay. So we'll discuss about the ABI thing later. Every contract that you deploy, you will get this ABI thing in the end, which you have to add in the project. So we'll discuss about this like later. We should talk about this. Okay. So importing other source files, syntax and semantics. Okay. Solidity supports import statements to help modularize your code that are similar to those available in JavaScript from ES6 version on. Okay. However, Solidity does not support the concept of a default export. Okay. So they don't allow default export. So you'll always have to use the import statement in order to, import a certain segment of a code or import the whole code from a different file or so. Okay. You can see the syntax, it always goes as import file name. So if you have a folder or if you are working on a project, you can always, and you can have multiple smart contracts. And you don't want to, like yesterday I gave an example that if you are making a project that involves tokens, okay, tokens that you want to have for your project. So you can write a whole ERC20 token creation separately in a file, and then just import that particular file, smart contract with whatever file name in the other smart contract that you're trying to implement. That goes as import file name. Okay. The file name part is called an import path. This statement imports all global symbols from file name into the current global scope. This form is not recommended for use because it is unpredictably pollutes the namespace. If you add new top level items inside file name, they automatically appear in all files. That import like this from file name, it is better to import specific symbols explicitly. The following example creates a new global symbol called symbol name whose members are all the global symbols from file name. Okay. Too many details. I read it in one go. I didn't understand any. Okay. What is it saying? So first it is saying that the file name part is called an import path. Okay. So it's specifying the path. Okay. This particular statement, whenever you're using an import statement, it will import all global symbols from file name. So all those things that are declared as global will be imported into the current global scope. So even in that code in which you're importing the file, whatever global scope is available, that particular segment will only import the previous global symbols. Okay. This form is not recommended for use because it unpredictably pollutes the namespace. Okay, so I don't know what they're trying to say here, like in terms of polluting the namespace, but what I've seen as errors is that sometimes you'll have again same clashes that there's a particular variable name or a function name in the previous smart contract you're trying to import here. So the declaration happens twice. Now, if you're creating a variable called suppose uint number, okay, and
Hello.
you declare, yeah, hi. Was Kiran trying to speak? Why would we need to use an import path? Why would we not?
I mean,
Tell me that.
what is the significance of using an import path, like in the
Okay.
context of what you are learning?
Okay, so what it basically does is, suppose, um, uh, okay, I'll give you this example. When you're working with Web2, right? So when you're making that project, suppose you're working on some front end project, right? So you have a separate file called HTML, then there's CSS, there's JavaScript, right? So you know that there are certain features or the HTML file has to be always linked with CSS and JavaScript file, right? There's a separate tag for it. There's a separate line of code that tells you that you can import this CSS or you can connect the CSS and JavaScript with this HTML file, right? Similarly, when you're working in Web3, the whole project that you're trying to make might have multiple smart contracts. Okay, it will have multiple smart contracts, and there are certain. Suppose I am making a gaming platform. Okay, or I'm making a fake. This was one project idea that I was trying to do, a fake news detection platform. Okay, so what I wanted is that whosoever is coming on my platform, and they are putting their bets in that thing, they should do it using my coins, the token that I have created. And I created that token as fake coins. The name of the token was fake coins. Okay. Now I had to write a separate contract for creation of fake coin. Then I had to write a separate contract for the whole betting thing to go to work on the platform. Right. Now, this betting smart contract that I have written will always have the use of those fake coins, because what I'm trying is that I want my users to bet using the coins, right? So it's two different smart contracts. how will the program get to know that there is a fake coin or there was this coin created? For that, you need, whenever you're writing that betting smart contract, you need to import the whole fake coin smart contract creation into this so that it can take the features. So a project can have multiple smart contracts, and various segments can deal with various things which you can't include in one smart contract. So in that case, you have to import that particular smart contract into the other smart contract. And that is why we are using import and file name. So it can be, if my fake coin contract is called fake coin and my betting contract is called bet platform. So when I'm writing the bet platform smart contract, the after the license and the whole pragma thing, I have to write that okay, import fake coin. Why? Because only then this contract will know that okay, whenever she is referring to coins or fake coin in this contract, she means the coins that she has created. So in order to do that, we need to link both the programs. Did you get my point?
Yes, got it.
Yeah. Even Trisha has explained. We can't write whole code in one file, so we tend to divide it into components, such as in React. Because you have to import that component as file name in which you define. So when you do like a full-fledged project, you will get all of that easily. Okay. So again, they talk about polluting the namespace. If you add new top level items inside file name, they automatically appear in all files that import like this from file. Okay, it is better to import specific symbols explicitly. So what happens is, since we're talking about certain elements that needs to be imported, what it says is, um, uh, um, there can be such situations where suppose you've declared a variable called number in one file and there's a similar function or there's a similar variable in the other file, right? You'll always have that clash. If you're importing the whole file, the first file that is having that number variable into this, there will be a error where in this file you're trying to declare the number thing. It will show that okay, this is automatically declared or initialized. So there can be many such issues like that in terms of functions creation, all of that. So what it is saying that instead of doing that wholly, what you can do is you can specifically import or create a global symbol for symbol name whose members are all the global symbols from file. Okay, so you will they haven't specified the example here. If I have a project, I'll show you that uses something like this. So they're saying that, yeah, so they have actually put everything under this symbol name, which results in all global symbols being available in the format symbol name dot symbol. Okay, a variant of the syntax that is not of ES6 but possibly useful is import file name as symbol name. So again, I think we have. Okay, so those who have written C++ codes, right? We have seen this. So what happens is I mean, this might not be relatable, but I'm trying to just connect things at how this might move forward. So those who have written C++ codes, there are certain libraries, there are certain, definitions that you do. So suppose if you're writing a competitive programming code, there are situations where you say hashtag define long as LL, right? Because you just want to omit that particular situation of writing long everywhere, and you say that okay, this is how I'm defining it as LL. So everywhere you see LL, the compiler should understand that okay, it is talking about the long uh, uh, class or library or body, whatever it is. So what they are also saying is that they've put everything inside one and they're importing import file name as symbol name. That means only certain things um, will be imported, which is that is all the global symbols that has been declared in the previous file has been added. Okay, so that is how they're gonna fetch it. So if you are importing fake coin contract as suppose coin. just coin. So in the case that you have to put any variable or bring in any function from that particular smart contract, you can just do coin dot and whatever function that you're trying to bring in order to use it in the current smart contract. We do have this format in Python. Yes. If there is a naming collision, you can rename symbols while importing. For example, the code below creates a new global symbols alias and symbol 2, which reference symbol 1 and symbol 2 from inside file name respectively. Right? So they are saying import symbol 1 as alias, symbol 2 from file name. So again, they are also trying to resolve the naming collision. So that is how you do it. Again, import paths. In order to be able to support reproducible builds on all platforms, the Solidity compiler has to abstract away the details. Let me take a look what they're trying to say. Import paths do not refer to the database, which is an opaque entity. Okay, so what they're basically saying is that whenever you're using this import thing, right, they're not directly referring to the file in the host file system. Instead, in the backend, the compiler is maintaining an internal database or a virtual file system, that is VFS, where every source unit, okay, every file is assigned a unique source unit name, okay. So that is how they're doing it. You don't need to. Again, we come to comments. So again, we have already seen single line, multi-line. It's similar to what they do in other languages. I think only HTML has a separate format, or some other programming language has some other comment thing. But most of the programming languages will have double slash a single line and slash and asterisk with closing asterisk and slashes multi-line comment. Okay. Then okay. So this was that. Okay. So now this was the initial topic that we were looking into was basic layout of a Solidity file, right? Now we're talking about the structure of a contract. So in this, we're going to talk about all the types of variables that you have, the functions, the function modifiers, struct types, enums, events, errors, all of it, right? So contracts in Solidity are similar to classes in object-oriented language. So I've already specified you this, that there's no concept of classes in Solidity. Instead, we have something called as class. Each contract can contain declaration of state variables, functions, function modifiers, events, errors, struct types, and enum types. Okay, and also contracts can inherit from other contracts. There are also special kinds of contracts called libraries and interfaces. Fine. State variables. Okay, so you need to know this and I think I've mentioned it in the previous class itself. State variables are variables whose values are permanently stored in the contract storage. Okay. So whenever when you are so there you'll see more variables where you are trying to put it in memory. So that goes for temporary, but whenever you're declaring it as state variable, their values are permanently stored in contract storage, and it goes like a global variable declaration. That is why you see that it's declared outside. See the type set for valid state. Okay. Functions, again, functions, we all know what functions are. They're executable units of code, and these are usually defined inside a contract, but they can also be defined outside a contract. So again, just like in other languages, we can have, so we have a main class, but we also declare classes outside the main class and we try to call it. Here, what they're saying is you can declare functions inside a contract, but you can also have functions outside a contract. It's not necessary. Okay. Function calls can happen internally or externally, and they have different levels of visibility towards other contracts, and they can accept parameters and return variables to pass parameters and values between them. So this is what they've told us, basic. You all already know that functions can take in parameters, they can return variables, there will be different levels of visibility and all of that. Okay. So if you click on this, if you go on this, so here there's a section where they're already, it's pretty late in the contract segment where they talk about visibility, where they talk public, internal, private. Okay, function visibility is external, public, internal, private again. So we'll talk about this also. You'll have to be a little patient. There's a reason they have written it, in a different segment. But first, we'll take a look at everything very quickly. Function modifiers. Function modifiers can be used to amend the semantics of functions in a declarative way. Overloading, that is having the same modifier name with different parameters, is not possible. Like function modifier can be overridden. Okay, so overloading is not possible. Overriding is possible. Now, can someone quickly explain me? Can some someone quickly explain me what goes for overloading and what goes for overriding? I mean,
Hello, can I
yeah,
try?
yeah, sure.
So, what I know from concepts of other programming languages, overloading is the concept where we have multiple functions with the same name, but their definition is different. Like their signature is different, their return type as well as their parameter list can be different. So, in that case, we have overloading. And in case of overriding, which happens mostly in cases of inheritance, we have exactly the same definition as that of the parent class, but in the child class, when we are overriding the function, we give them a different body so that we can implement more functionalities through that function.
Yeah, okay, good. So basically, in short, we can say that when two or more methods in a same class have the same method name but different parameters, okay, it goes as overloading. But when you're talking about overriding, between two methods or so, they'll have the same name and the same parameters as well. Am I correct? That is what you were trying to say?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So they're saying that overloading, that is having the same modifier name with different parameters, is not possible. But for both functions and modifiers, it can be overridden. So again, all these links that you have in the documentation, I know it feels pretty overwhelming because there will be pages where there are more links than words, but you should always take a look and see. I mean, we can always obviously go one by one, but it's always good to go through that and see whether you can learn it right away or do you need more information to, process that further, right? Um, when you click on overriding here, you come to this section called modifier overriding, where function modifiers can override each other. This works in the same way as function overriding, except that there is no overloading for modifiers. The virtual keyword must be used on the overridden modifier and the override keyword must be used. Okay, so they've said nothing, but they've said that there has to be a override um, override keyword, okay, and there has to be a virtual key. Okay, so the virtual keyword must be used on the overridden modifier and the override keyword must be used in the overriding modifier. What is this? What is this? Virtual override inherited space.
So,
Inherited.
ma'am, can we not have functions? We can only have modifiers for overriding. Is it so?
What?
Here they are using modifier for overriding, so we cannot have functions for this thing. We can only use modifiers. Is that so?
We have function overriding as well. This is where they're talking only about modifier overriding. If you
So
come to
what is the
function,
difference between modifier and function then?
how are they actually specifying it? That I'll also have to look, which is a good question. Wait. Hmm.
Hey, Sneha, is there any specific reason like why overloading is not possible?
Uh, Not that I don't know of. Maybe overloading is not possible. Yeah, correct. I didn't give it a thought before. Anyway, wait, I'll just write it down. Maybe we can figure it out by the next class. Why is overloading? Hmm. Okay, so what was the other question? Yeah, I mean the overloading thing. I'll get back to you in next class. I don't have like a proper answer for it. That why is or is there a special reason that overloading is not possible? And I just don't want to give like any answer. So that is one question that I'll get to you. What was the other question that you guys were talking about?
It was difference between modifier and function.
Functions. Okay, so um, I don't know how they are talking about it in Solidity, right? Because they're talking about function overriding separately, method overriding separate, modifier overriding separately. But what I've seen is when you're talking about functions, right? We're trying to do a particular event. We're trying to perform a particular operation, and there might be situations when we have to do it again and again. But when we're talking about modifiers, those modifiers are like a special type of function bringing changes in the other functions. The only job that it is doing is it is modifying other functions, and that is why we are calling them as modifiers. They're not doing any other operations. Okay, so it can be like if you write a function that calculates a product or that you does user registration, you will have certain operations inside it, right? Taking name, address, data, blah, blah. But if you're talking about modifiers, it might be that there are a lot of functions in the code and you need to bring a certain change in one of the functions and then you're using modifiers. So they are also like functions only. But they are like a special kind of function which is trying to modify some other function present in the code. This is what I know of.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, basically, we do that because suppose I think I showed the example to you in JavaScript. I don't know if you remember when we were talking about super keyword, right? I was telling you that how if you're trying to put it or import a function from a parent class, right? Where we were talking about leaves, that okay, 3 leaves or this number of leave will be assigned, and you go to the child class. You didn't want to change the whole function. You just wanted that if the employee is a programmer, the number of leaves, whatever that employee is getting, for a programmer, it should be leave plus one. Does anybody remember that example? Anybody who remembers that example? Okay, nobody remembers. It's fine. So we did this, I think, when we were talking about super keyword and during the oops concept and everything. So what we wanted is there was a class employee, and then there was this class programming. So it was like inherited from that, and we wanted to do like a certain change when when they were talking about the leave that was assigned, right? So the whole idea was that you don't want to change the whole function, but there are certain things that you want to change. So whenever you want a certain change or tweaking of that function or modification in that function, then you use modifiers. So you just list up the required change, but you don't change the whole function overall. So that is the basic example how it goes forward. But we might like come across examples that can make it more clear for us, right? Then again, so yeah,
Is the overloading thing will not work with the modifiers only. It will work with the functions.
with
Is that
functions.
so?
Yes, 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 yes. So that they're just saying that same modifier name with different parameters is not possible. With functions, it's possible. But when it comes to overriding, then for functions and modifiers, both it can happen. So the question that I have to look forward with is, why is overloading not possible? Okay, cool. So then again, when you're looking at this, it says that contract purchase, address public seller, modifier only seller. Okay, the require message sender, only seller can call this. Okay, function abort public view, only modified usage. So what are they trying to do? What they've done is they have started the contract, they have put something as public seller, and they're trying to use a function modifier here where they're creating this only. So ideally it could be function only seller, where they're talking about require message dot sender equals to seller, right? But they've put it as modifier because they want this specific condition for the seller to call this, and then they're using a function abort public view only seller. That means they're using that particular modifier along with this function abort. Okay, makes sense. Function modifiers can be used to amend the semantics of functions in a declarative way. Okay. If I come here where they're talking about function modifiers, getter functions, function modifiers. Okay, yeah, see here you have the answer. They're saying that modifiers can be used to change the behavior of functions in a declarative way. For example, you can use a modifier to automatically check a condition prior to executing a function. That means only when that particular condition is whatever you've put it as true or false, or the condition is checked, then you go to the execution. Apart, instead of checking that condition in the function, okay, after that function is executed. I think yesterday we saw function mint, in which you were talking about the required keyword, where you were checking required message dot sender equals to minter, right? So what they're saying is that instead we can also use a modifier that first checks the condition, require minter is equals to message dot sender, before they've actually implemented the function mint. Modifiers are inheritable properties of contracts and may be overridden by derived contract, but only if they are marked virtual. Okay, that we'll deal later. But is the idea of modifier in this case clear? Is it? Okay, cool. Fine. So now we come to events. We have already talked about events in the last class. So events are convenience interfaces with EVM logging facilities. Oh my God, what is this? Okay. This definition is really bad. Uh, all that you have to keep in mind is that you're creating this event with for certain name and certain parameters has been passed, and you're always calling that event or triggering that event with the emit keyword inside a particular function, right? And that event is basically an operation that you want to perform, which is getting, put on the blockchain. You can always see details, and yesterday also we were able to see the details that we have passed and all of that. Events in contract section, we'll deal with it. Okay. Errors again, I don't think there's a need to explain this segment to you, but you should remember that again, errors allow you to define descriptive names and data for failure situations, and these are used with revert statements. So even yesterday we had seen that an error is declared, and once a particular condition is checked, there's a revert statement that takes you back to the error. Okay, that takes you back to the error, and it will give out certain details to the caller of the function. Does everyone remember that? That how you were putting a certain value amount that you were trying to send to the sender, and there was a condition that was checking if the amount is greater than whatever balance that the sender has, and then you had declared an error, and there was a revert statement in which you were showing that, okay, this is what the sender is sending, that is the requested amount, and this is the available amount. And somebody in the chat sent the screenshot with that particular, I think Garima did. 0 and 12 was the value, right? So everyone remembers how error and revert was working, right?
What is the meaning of that net spec there?
You can use NatSpec to describe the error to the user. Oh my God, I just hate these terms. Can someone Google? I also forgot what NatSpec
So
is.
it's like I was just reading through the documentation. So it's in comment section. They wrote that it's a special type of comment, nothing else, like just a descriptive
Oh,
type. Yeah.
yes, correct. I was thinking that I've heard this somewhere, but I didn't know what it is. Can you point us out where can we find that? Or maybe I'll just Google.
Yeah. If you scroll down, there is this comment section as well. How do we add comments?
Here.
Wait, I'll just screenshot.
Okay. Just share this screenshot. Yeah, these three slash lines that you're using, that type of comment is NatSpec. So it's again the descriptive way to define that. Am I right? I think yeah, it's the 3 slashes that we are using. NatSpec. Okay. The NatSpec thing stands for, again, Ethereum Natural Language Specification Format. No way I was going to remember this. But again, it's the descriptive way to provide comments, special form of comment. Whenever you are using these three slashes, it goes for NatSpec. You can just, I think, if you do CTRL. I think Prisha is sending the screenshot here. It's in layout or after import path section. Okay, wait. Layout of a Solidity source file. Come on. I definitely need to buy a new laptop. Okay. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, we skipped this section. So again, additionally, there is another type of comment called a NatSpec comment, which is detailed in the style they are written with triple slash. See, I knew I've read it somewhere. Or a double asterisk block. And they should be used directly above function declarations or statements. Fine. Good. Prisha has read it really nicely. Good. I forgot where were we again. Shit. Yeah. So error is clear for everyone, right? Error and reward. Okay, cool. Can someone explain me what is struct and what is enum?
Hello?
Yeah,
Okay, someone is.
yeah, just anybody go forward.
Yeah, can I give it a try? Like in other programming languages like C, it's used to like basically group together different variables of like different type of variables. It's like, yeah, it's used to group together variables.
Okay. What about enums? Do you have an idea on enums?
Enum is basically a data structure, a user defined data type in which we can have some predefined constant values. So at a particular time, an enum object can have only one of the constant values we have defined for it.
Yeah, correct. So again, when you look into Solidity, these structs are basically where you have several variables. Okay, the example that I can give for you for this is, suppose you are creating. If you're talking about a person, right, there are multiple details that you need for a person. It can be their name, it can be their wallet address, it can be their age, it can be their designation, whatever it is, right? So for one entity, we need a lot of other properties or attributes, right? So what they are doing is, instead of declaring it again and again under person, we're creating one structure. Okay, we're using the struct keyword, and we are defining a lot of variables inside it, right? So you can see that for struct voter, we have weight, we have voted, we have address delegate, we have view int vote, and other things. And then when we're talking about enum, they've already said that you are creating custom types with a finite set of constant values. Okay, so you'll always have a set of constant values under enum. So these are the two things that we talked about: events and errors and other stuffs are clear. Again, types. Okay. So Solidity is a statically typed language, which means that the type of each variable, state and local, needs to be specified. Can anyone tell me what type of language was JavaScript? Anybody? What type of language was JavaScript? Dynamically typed. And can anyone tell me what?
Don't need to declare any data types for it, for the variables.
Yeah, correct. So in JavaScript, we had seen that whenever we were declaring any variable, we were just going forward with let or var instead of specifying that, okay, this is the int, this is a string, right? So it will always take values and understand what data type it is according to the value. But Solidity is a statically typed language, and that is why we are specifying, okay, u int number, because the compiler should know that, okay, it's a unsigned integer. So you have to specify the type of each variable, and there are several elementary types which can be combined to form complex types. Now, can anyone tell me the two major types of two major data types in JavaScript? What was the category called?
Let, var, or const.
No, not this. The data type category that I'm talking about.
Primitive and
Primitive
derived
and-
data types.
Yes, primitive and non-primitive or reference was. right? So we have already talked that primitive was the original types, okay, and reference will always be a derivation of primitives, okay. So when we are talking about arrays or what was the other ones? I myself forgot. Check. So bad. I think reference types had objects as well, right? Yeah. So reference arrays, functions, objects. These are reference types, and they will be a combination of the primitive types that goes as integers and strings and all of that. So here also they are saying that they have elementary types that goes for primitive types, and those elementary types can be combined to form complex types. Okay. Then, how many of you are aware of order that there is something called order of precedence of operators? And what is that? Anybody just explain what is that? Anybody? Quick.
The order in which the expressions are evaluated, like each operator has their own precedence. If we see the arithmetic operators, we have the multiplication with higher precedence, and if they are parentheses, they will get the higher precedence. Based on the precedence, they will be evaluated first.
Yeah, correct. So again, order of precedence, whenever we're talking about the order in which the operators can be evaluated, right? So division, multiplication has a higher precedence, addition, subtraction together has a similar precedence, but it is after division or multiplication, right? Then it can always depend on left to right, right to left, and all of that. In which format or which order will that be executed? That's it. The third point is that the concept of undefined or null values does not exist in Solidity, but newly declared variables always have a default value dependent on its type. To handle any unexpected values, you should use the revert function to revert the whole transaction or return a tuple with a second bool value denoting success. Okay, so what it is trying to say is that there is no concept of undefined or null values, but there will always be that every new variable that you're trying to declare, there will be a default value depending on what type of variable are you trying to use. So we'll see what are the default values. Where is the default values? Check. So they might have so just like here they're talking about that default value for a bool is false, default value for the uint or int type is 0 for statically sized arrays, and bytes 1 to byte 32 each individual element will be initialized to the default value corresponding to its type. Okay, so they've basically declared default values on their own so that you don't declare it as a 0 or nil, okay, whenever a new variable is declared, right? And if there's a case of unexpected values, we should always use the revert function. Okay. Okay, I thought there's no problem. So we should always use the revert function so that the whole transaction is reverted. Now that can be any situation, right? If you I think division by 0 is a very common example that people talk about in case of exception handling or so. So whenever you think that okay, there can be any unexpected value in this case, you should always write a corresponding revert function that will take you back to the transaction where it should stop, or it can return a value or whatever. Success can be shown with true, it can be a statement, whatever it is, right? Then value types, again, the value following are called value types because the variables will always be passed by value. That is, they're always copied when they're used as function arguments or in assignments. Again, you don't have to get into that. All you need to know here is that, okay, there's Boolean, possible values, constants, true and false. Then there are operators, again, similar operators as we have in JavaScript and other languages. There's logical negotiation, there's conjunction, that is the and symbol that is denoted by ampersand. Then there's or, then there's equality, then there's inequality, okay? Okay, the operators or and operators or and the other one is ampersand apply the common short circuiting rules. This means that in the expression fx or gx evaluates to true, gy will not be evaluated even if it may have side effects. Oh, sorry, fx or gy, if fx evaluates to true, gy will not be evaluated even if it may have side effects. Okay, so what it is trying to say is that when you're trying to do an or, right? So we know that when we're trying to or two elements, if one of it is true, the output will be true. Now, Solidity is a really lazy language. It does not even want to know that, okay, what is the value of gy? If fx is evaluated to true, they will not even evaluate gy, and that is why they're saying that it might have side effects, okay? It might have an exception scenario also, but since they've got the output, they will not be bothered that what is the value that they've got. Okay, so they're referring to it as short circuiting rules. Okay, so like they try to like optimize the number of operations, or they try to minimize, not optimize, minimize the number of operations that you're trying to do. Again, integers, int slash uint, that is signed and unsigned integer of various sizes. Keywords uint to uint 256 in steps of 8. Unsigned of 8 up to 256 bits, and int 8 to int 256. Uint and int are aliases for uint. Okay, can someone explain to me what is uint? What is the difference between uint and int? Anyone?
Uint refers to unsigned int, means it doesn't consist of negative values, whereas integer int is the signed integer. It consists of negative values also.
As well, yeah, correct. So again, they have talked about both the types of data types, and they're talking that, okay, it can be 8, it can be 32, it can be 16. It will always go in steps of 8. You can't be like uint 8, uint 10, uint 12. No, uint 8, uint 16, then 32. 32 is what we use. It can be 24 as well, but I think 24 is a very rare one. I haven't seen it till now anywhere. 32, and then 256 is also there. 128 is also there. Similar is for int as well. Okay, they're both aliasing. Okay, in terms of that int is taking both negative and positive values, uint is taking only positive values, right? Operators, comparison, bit operators, shift operators, arithmetic operators are all similar. Okay, then for an integer type x, you can use type x dot min and type x dot max to access the minimum and maximum value representable by the type. Okay, so if you really want to know that what is the minimum value that it can contain or the maximum value, you can use type x dot min, type x dot max. Okay, integers in Solidity are restricted to a certain range, same as other programming language. For example, with uint 32, this is 0 up to 2 to the power 32 minus 1. This is what happens even for other programming languages, right? There's short-term int, there's long-term int, then there's floating, then there's decimal, double, blah, blah, blah. So the range always increases. So int will have a certain range, float will have a range higher than that, double will have a range higher than whatever is specified in int. So similarly in Solidity also integers have a certain range. There are two modes in which arithmetic is performed on these types, the wrapping or unchecked mode and the checked mode. By default, arithmetic is always checked, meaning that if an operation results falls outside the value range of the type, the call is reversed through a failing assertion. You can switch to unchecked mode using unchecked. More details are. In fact, this is something that I'm reading for the first time. I never like to read warnings or notes. I mean, I used to read that when I was in school, because in geography books and so those boxes will have the most interesting information. But here it's like literally unbothered. So what we came to know is that whenever you're performing an arithmetic operation, they're talking about two modes. One is unchecked and one is checked, right? So um, whenever your operation, so by default the arithmetic is in checked state, right? So what do you mean by checked state? That if the operation result will fall outside the value range, okay? Suppose you're taking uint, but like in general programming language, if you're talking about integers and your value falls under double or float, right? So if that would have been the case in Solidity, it will revert through a failing assertion. Now we'll see what that failing assertion will probably be a error value or something that it is reverted to. Handling assert, record, revert. Oh, I think yeah, failing assertions. We're talking about basically the exceptions, how we are dealing with it, right? So they haven't specified generally, but they'll give you an error, okay, or they'll specify it as a warning or whatever it is. And we can always switch to unchecked mode using unchecked, and more details we can talk about. But this is what you should know, and you will be able to see this if you're trying to suppose make a calculator using Solidity. Okay, then in that case. If you try to do a subtraction operation, I think I experimented this with my last student. So if you're trying to do a subtraction, a minus b, and once you've deployed the contract and you give a's value smaller than b's value and you're doing a minus b, it will throw you an error. So you either will have to change the data type and make it to int if you're taking uint, or again unchecked is something that I didn't know, so I haven't even used it. Again, fine. Comparisons, again, you know how it goes: less than equals to, greater than equals to, blah, blah, blah. Bit operations, again, we're always talking about representation in terms of 0 and 1. Shifts. So, this is something that personally really confuses me. I always forget what left shift and right shift actually means. So which one is the power? Which one goes as which one goes as multiplication? Which one goes as division? I just can't remember that. So that's specifying that if it's x a shift y is equivalent to the mathematical expression x to the x into 2 to the power y, right? We know that the double asterisk is used for power, right? And when we're talking about, I think, which one is which one? Again, I always forget. I think this is the
First one
right
is left and second is right.
is right. Yeah. So then when we're talking about right shift, it's division. X by 2 to the power y, right? Rounded towards negative infinity. So oh, here we had the answer. Yeah. But I'll always forget this. I always have to take a look for that. So yeah, then they've explained again. Here, there's a chat. Yeah, sure. Okay. We can do it in some time. Cool. Fine. Addition, subtraction, and multiplication. So usual semantics, right? They've already referred that all arithmetic operation is checked for under or overflow, but this can be disabled using the unchecked block. Okay. The expression minus x is equivalent to t0 minus x, where t is the type of x. It can only be applied to signed types, right? The value of minus x can be positive if x is negative, blah, 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 blah. So they're basically saying that whenever, if you're dealing with unsigned integers and you're getting a negative value or something, how do you deal with it? So you either uncheck it, or you'll have to first get an idea. of finding the minimum value, and you have to see that okay, minus x does not fit in the positive range. So you go for unchecked, assert minus x equals to x. It will work, and the expression minus x when used in the check mode will result in a failing assertion, right? So they've basically tried to explain that. Since for the division they're talking, since the type of the result of an operation is always the type of one of the operands, division on integers will always result in an integer. In Solidity, division round towards 0. This means that u int 256 of minus 5 divided by int 256 minus 5 divided by int 256 2 is equals to int 256 minus 2. Note that in contrast, division on literals results in fractional values of arbitrary precision. Division by 0 causes a panic error. This check cannot be disabled through uncheck. Basically, you will come across a lot of features in Solidity where they are trying to build something and they're trying to specify something, and in that also they will have an exception. So they're just like here, they are dealing with an exception case where if a certain value that you want to obtain in a certain range is not true. I mean, it has overflowed or it has underflowed. So they came up with this checked and unchecked. Even in that segment, they have an error that is given by 0 that cannot be solved by that unchecked. So they just keep coming up with these iterations and versions and etc. etc. Again, the expression type int dot min divided by -1 is the only case where division causes an overflow. In checked arithmetic mode, this will cause a failing assertion, while in wrapping mode, the value will be type int dot min. Nice. You will not need all of this as such until and unless you're doing something like really mathematical, or if you're dealing with maybe things that involves money segregation or stuff like that. But it's good. It's good to go through all of that. Then we have modulo. It works in a similar manner, and they're trying to explain how it will work, right? So if you're doing a modulus n and there's a remainder r after the division of the operand a by the operand n, right? Again, they have put it in a very childish form that if q is equals to int a by n and r equals to a minus n into q, that this means that modulo results in the same sign as its left operand of 0, and a modulus n equals to minus a modulus n and the whole minus. So holds for negative a. Okay, whatever they're trying to do. Basic commons. Again, modulo with 0 causes a panic error. This check cannot be disabled through unchecked. Again, exponentiation, you know that when we are using double asterisk, it goes for exponentiation. And here they are specifying that whenever we are working in checked mode, exponentiation only uses the comparatively cheap EXP opcode for small bases. For the case of x modulus 3, the expression x asterisk s asterisk s x might be cheaper. In any case, gas cost test and the use of optimizers are advisable. Again, so here when we know what they're trying to specify is when we talk about web 2 codes, right? When we were talking about codes, when we were dealing with web 2 stuff, we'll always talk in terms of time and space and all of that, right? Here we always look forward to gas optimization, right? The higher or the more the complex the code is, the gas C is high, okay, because it's creating a lot of how do I say, lot of something on the network, okay. It will take a lot of time to process and everything, right? So they're saying that if you're trying to do exponentiation for a very small value, suppose x to the power 3, right? In that case, going for x, a multiplication of x thrice will be cheaper, okay. And not just in this case, in any case, whenever you're writing the code, you should always look for optimizable formats where the gas cost will be less, right? Also 0 to the power 0 in the EVM is defined as 1, okay. Then I think fixed point numbers, there's not much. It will talk about signed and unsigned fixed point numbers of various sizes, blah, blah, blah. Again, address. Address is a very, very common data type that you're going to use in Solidity. In the last code itself, we have seen address so many types. So it comes in two largely identical flavors. One is address, one is address payable. Okay. So in the address data type, it will hold a 20-byte value. Okay, that is the size of an address, Ethereum address, right? It has a 20-byte value. And then there's address payable. So when you add this payable keyword in front of that address, it will be able to transfer and send money or tokens or whatever it is. Okay. The idea behind this distinction is that address payable is an address you can send ether to, while you are not supposed to send ether to a plain address. For example, because it might be a smart contract that was not built to accept ether, right? So if you're writing smart contract, suppose maybe that is not EVM compatible. Suppose, I mean, I don't know if I'm giving the right example, but suppose you're writing a smart contract in Solidity that does not accept ethers. Okay, it can be built on other chain, right? It can accept Matic or anything else. So in that case, you can't declare it as payable. This payable is basically that particular address is able to transfer and send or accept ether as tokens, right? So that is how you go forward with it. So just two types, address and address payable. Both are very similar. Address and address payable both will be of 20-byte value, but the only major difference here comes is that payable will have additional members of transfer and sending the funds in terms of ether, right? Then there's a common thing of type conversions. Implicit conversions from address payable to address are allowed, whereas conversions from address to address payable must be explicit via payable address. Okay. So when you're trying to convert a payable address into a plain address, it's fine. You can do it implicitly, right? But if you're trying to convert a plain address to a payable address, it has to be always done externally. The smart contract cannot do like a implicit conversion that it will automatically assume that, okay, this plain address can also be a payable address. Okay. Explicit conversions to and from address are allowed for UIN60, 160, integer, literal, bytes 20, and contract types. Okay. Only expressions of type address and contract type can be converted to the type address payable via the explicit conversion payable. So whenever you're trying to do an explicit conversion, this is how you're going to do it. So you'll write payable and then you will write the address. For contract type, this conversion is only allowed if the contract can receive ether. That is, the contract either has a receive or a payable fallback function. Okay. Note that payable 0 is valid and is an exception to this rule. Okay. So basically, the whole idea revolves under that if you are trying to implement a smart contract that deals with receiving or sending ethers or tokens, ether tokens, then only then you can have like a payable address. Again, we'll look into fallback function, how it works. And they're saying that payable 0 is also a valid and exception to this rule. If you need a variable of type address and plan to send ether to it, then declare its type as address payable to make this requirement visible. Also try to make this distinction or conversion as early as possible, right? Now they have talked about in which version it was introduced and so on. Okay, what they're trying to talk here is that if you're converting a type that uses a larger byte size to an address, for example, bytes 32, then the address is truncated. To reduce conversion ambiguity starting with the version 0.4.24, the compiler will force you to make transaction explicit in the conversion. Take for the example the 32-bit value. You can use address uint 160 bytes 22b, which results in this, or you can use address uint 160 uint 256b, which results in this. What was it trying to say? Okay, so it will basically I think do the do the division on its own end. So just because you don't want the value to be truncated, it will generate values accordingly, where you can use the address keyword. You can specify u into 160, and then since there was a higher byte that you were using, you have to specify it as bytes 20, then b, which will result in a certain value for you. And or you can use UN 256, that is similar, and that will also result in a certain value. Now that is happening on the compiler side. You can't really figure out how things go, and you don't have to put your brain into that. Again, this is also important. Members of addresses, right? For a quick reference of all members of addresses, see members of address types. But here we are basically talking about balance and transfer, right? If it is possible to query the balance of an address using the property balance, we have seen it yesterday already, and to send ether in units of V to a payable address using the transfer function, right? So they are built-in function. You can use balance to find the balance, and you can use transfer function to transfer the funds. Now, can someone tell me that how is the unit V way, however you pronounce it, WEI, related to ether? Can anyone write the value? Anyone? Just Google search and tell me how is the unit way related to ether in general. You have this in the documentation further, but I want to know. Yes. So 10 to the power 18 V is equals to 1 ether, right? So the transaction is always happening in terms of V only, but we see it in terms of point tokens of ether. Okay. Cool. So here you can see that address payable X is equals to payable 0x123, address my address equals to address this. If X dot balance is less than 10 and my address dot balance is greater than equals to 10, X dot transfer 10, right? So they've just declared a payable address X, and they're taking payable then a certain address value, right? And they're saying address, they've declared a variable called my address, and they're putting this address into the my address variable, and they're saying that if the payable address that we have declared as X, if it has a balance less than 10 and my address balance is greater than equals to 10, then you transfer extra transfer 10. The transfer function fails if the balance of the current contract is not large enough, or if the ether transfer is rejected by the receiving account, the transfer function will revert on a failure. If X is a contract address, its code, more specifically if present, will be executed together with the transfer call. This is a feature of EVM and cannot be prevented. If that execution runs out of gas or fails in any way, the ether transfer will be reverted and the current contract will stop with an exception. Okay, so it's saying that if X is itself the contract address, its code along with the transfer thing will execute together. Okay, and that can't be prevented because that is what a built-in feature that EVM has. And if that execution runs out of the gas value, right, or fails in any way, the ether transfer will be reverted and the current contract will be terminated. No execution will happen. And then there's another thing called as send. So send is the low level counterpart of transfer. If the execution fails, the current contract will not stop with an exception, but send will return false. Okay. So that means it's like it's more safer to use transfer. Send is basically a low level counterpart of it. If the execution fails, the contract won't stop. In the previous case, it will stop with an exception. But if you are using send by any chance instead of transfer, it will not stop with exception, but the send function will give you a false. It will return false. So that is why they say that there are some dangers in using send. The transfer fails if the call stack depth is blah, 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 blah. The only takeaway from this is that you should use transfer and not send, because transfer is safer. It will immediately stop execution of the contract and give you an exception, but with instant that is not the case, right? Then we have more stuff, call, delegate call, static call. Okay, it will get too much. So what we'll do is, since Swati had some things to share on why overloading is not possible on modifiers, we'll give the stage to her and let her do the talking. Swati, you
Yeah,
can speak.
Sneha.
Yeah.
So basically, let's consider a superhero like our favorite Spider-Man. So basically, the Spider-Man is our function, and every superhero has a unique ability. Like a Spider-Man has a unique ability called web slinging. So Spider-Man is our function, and the unique ability, the web slinging, is like the modifier. So modifier are used to specify a unique condition for that function. So it's used for like to represent uniqueness. So uh, let's consider like if does Spider-Man has any other superpower like wall crawling or etc. No, like a superhero has a unique ability. Our modifiers also, like our functions also has unique modifiers. So there should not be any ambiguity, like because each modifier represents a specific condition that needs to be applied to a function. Overloading means having multiple versions of same modifier, but like as superheroes can't have multiple unique powers simultaneously, modifiers also can't have multiple versions that do different things. It's just to represent uniqueness of that condition. And this is like this came into the space because to make the more to make the code more clear and also to avoid the confusion. So yeah, that's
Okay,
from my
got
side.
it.
I'm
Nice,
not that
nice.
good at explanations.
No,
Sorry
no,
if
no, no.
anyone of
I,
you didn't get
I
it.
totally got it. So, since we've already talked, right, that in overloading, we're talking about a similar function name, but we can have multiple parameters, right? What she was trying to explain is that here modifiers are specifying a very unique feature of the function. Okay. Now, since overriding is possible, because overriding is basically same function definition but different parameters and stuff. Uh, the function or the modifier that here we are talking about cannot have different attributes. Okay, um, it's like exactly how she said that a particular function or a particular superhero cannot have multiple unique features. So that is why we can't properly do the overloading in terms of modifiers, but we can do it for functions. Because then there's an attribute change, right? But overriding is fine because it goes for the same thing. Is it clear for anyone? If not, please ask her. This is what I understand. If there were two modifiers with the same name but with different parameters, it would be difficult to know which modifier to use in a particular situation. Yes, exactly. So because overloading goes for same method name but different parameters, if we start overloading the modifiers and there can be multiple parameters, it will create ambiguity. That is what these guys are trying to avoid. That is why method overloading is not required. Thank you, Swati. You saved me from extra work. So is it clear? Everyone should definitely give a cheer to Swati for doing a good job that she did come up with a solution from her and whatever way she understood it. So good work, really good work. You are showing great progress, and I'm really happy that at least one of you is being impacted at such a level. Okay. I think, yeah, we are done for the day. If there's anything that you guys have to say, don't forget the reading section that I've asked you to do. I'm definitely gonna ask you. In case I forget, you should be that one kid who always reminds the teacher about the assignment if they have forgotten. So, although I'll remember it, but you guys have to remind me if I forget. So we'll have like a good discussion on all those topics. You can also refer to the EVM documentation for those topics, and then we can discuss. Anything else for today's class? Was it too much in terms of the theory, or was there difficulty in understanding?